Oh, that's my talk on Ahimsa, nonviolence, and recognizing, leading with love and compassion, and being compassionate with ourselves first. And that compassion begins with doing your work, no matter how messy it starts to become. It starts out as. Because how else are you going to get better at it? We all had to start somewhere. So maybe this isn't actually about Ahimsa. No, it is. Because we're often mean to ourselves. So maybe not just Ahimsa, maybe it's a little bit of that Pratipakshavahan as well. See, this all of this works together. That replacement thinking, that is a way that we can work on that nonviolence and leading with love for ourselves. So, and we're back. Welcome back to another week of whatever this is we're calling it. So we'll see what we're going to discuss this week. Not we'll see. I already know. I choose everything, right? So this week we are going to sit with and contemplate Ahimsa as we learn to connect these ancient practices, these ancient principles of yoga and mindfulness on our modern lives. So Ahimsa, we talked about it a few weeks ago when we did our little exploration of yoga, moving down along the 8-limb path, and we learned that Ahimsa is one of the yamas. I didn't open all the books. I just pulled them out of the bag. So let me find all the pages while we talk about what Ahimsa as a yama is. So remember, our yamas are reflections of our true nature according to Nischala Joy Devi, and from Satchidananda's interpretation, translation, and commentary on the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali, he describes Ahimsa, describes yamas as our regulations or restrictions, the things that how we're supposed to move through the world. Doesn't matter the name, the intention is the same. These are the things that we are supposed to do to reconnect with our divine self, to realign ourselves with the divine, the one that is in us, the one that is unchanged. So I will read Satchidananda's interpretation, translation of Ahimsa, and then I will read Nischala Joy Devi's, and then we'll discuss and figure out which one of those resonates with us best. And I will talk about why, which one resonates with me. So the first time, of course, is my first introduction into Ahimsa, nonviolence as described by Satchidananda, was, wrong page, in the presence of one firmly established in nonviolence, all hostilities cease. That is the sutra that describes specifically what Ahimsa means. In the list of the yamas in Sutra, Book 2, Sutra 30, yamas consist of nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, continence, and non-greed. So last week we talked about non-stealing and continence with our moderation and acknowledgement of our abundance. So this week we're going to stay in that reimagining, moving different, learning how to realign our lives with Ahimsa. Satchidananda describes it as nonviolence. And In the presence of one firmly established in nonviolence, all hostilities cease. Means that, we can't be mean no more if you are leading with nonviolence. Now, that's okay. Now, Nischala Joy Devi and her secret power of yoga, she describes the same sutra as Ahimsa, and that first selection in the yamas in the list of sutras is abundance of love. In her description of all the yamas, reflections of our true nature, is experienced through reverence, love, compassion for all, truthfulness, integrity, generosity, honesty, balance and moderation of the vital life forces, and awareness of abundance and fulfillment. So that's how she describes all of the yamas. Different words, same intention. And her very specific instruction about Ahimsa is embracing reverence and love for all. Ahimsa, we experience oneness. So she doesn't even talk about violence. All she discusses is love. And that is the biggest difference between her interpretation and commentary on the sutras and his. It is the leading with love. It's the things that we need to do as opposed to what we cannot do, what we should not do. So when we talk about nonviolence, it's always in relation to how we relate, how we move with other people. And in that nonviolence, we often allow violence to be visited upon us in our observance of nonviolence, in our observance of Ahimsa. Also, by others, we allow violence to be put upon us by others and by ourselves. Because if I, in my selflessness, my selfless service, I'm allowing someone to do me wrong, to treat me wrong, to treat me with violence of any kind, how am I loving me? How am I allowing myself to lead a nonviolent existence if I'm accepting somebody else's violence unopposed, right? There's not much talk about how one moves with nonviolence, treats themselves with nonviolence in Satchidananda's interpretation of the sutras. And that's not a lack. That's just because I believe that his interpretations of the sutras come with the understanding that you already kind of know all of these things, that you have visited all of these terms before. None of this is really new information for you. It's just we're gonna repackage it so it's a little bit more consistent and concise, so you can scroll through it. That's what I think. That's why I think that his interpretations are so very esoteric. They leave a lot of room for you to figure out what they mean. It's not really clear cut on how and why we do these things, why and how we really do need to observe nonviolence, not just about outside, but how we treat ourselves. I believe that his interpretation of nonviolence moves with the understanding that we're already doing that for ourselves. We're already setting firm boundaries. We are treating ourselves well enough to then treat others as well as we treat ourselves, right? Because we already recognize the sameness in each other, the connection between you and I. There is no difference. We're only us. That's it. So in the secret power of yoga, the more, in her words, the more feminine interpretation of the sutras, she describes Ahimsa as embracing reverence and love for all, we experience oneness. And she gets really into the idea of selfless service can't be really selfless. It has to start with you. You have to fill your own cup before you start pouring into other people. Now, if this is a new concept for you, her interpretation of it leads you down a path of, wait, I gotta love me first before I start loving on other people. It's a recognition of you deserve to be treated as well as you treat everybody else. And in so showing others how well you treat yourself, you show them how you deserve to be treated. Setting firm boundaries is not a disservice to anybody else. It is in service of you and your work, and your dharma, and protection of your light. Because if your light is diminished by somebody else's shade, how can you shine it? Now, I said a lot of things that ultimately mean the same thing. Lead with love. That's why it's the first yama. Lead with love. The thing that is missing from interpreting Ahimsa as nonviolence is that when we lead with love, sometimes we have to bring something in behind it to protect that loving spirit, right? That is the boundaries of love. Loving me, myself, means that I do not allow anybody else to disrupt or disturb the peace that is mine. Because I need that in order for me to shine my light where it's supposed to be. In studying yoga and unpacking all of these sutras, none of these things are ever mentioned just the one time. Like in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he's pulling stuff down and repackaging ideas and not ideas. Yeah, ideas. Because I can't think of anything else, and I'm not going to waste time trying to figure out another word for idea. All of those sutras and everything came from other texts that were already that were already established, that were already being taught. So we took all those things and said we're going to pull them from there, and then we're going to put them here. So now that there is a clear cut, follow these steps specifically. So one of those previous texts is the Bhagavad Gita. And this interpretation, the Living Gita, is the commentary is by Satchidananda as well. So like his interpretation of the sutras, of Patanjali Sutras, he brings a more contemporary commentary of the Bhagavad Gita. And just a side note on the study of yoga in the West and why I think it might be misinterpreted a lot is the lack of any other text taught in teacher trainings. A lot of the times, all we have is the sutras. But the sutras are bent to go with all of these other texts. It's a overlay, like, algebra 1, and then we need algebra 1. Once we have that, we get algebra 2, like that kind of thing. Not that order necessarily, but all of these texts are supposed to work together. We're supposed to get all of this information from all of these little things. And that's how we build on that knowledge. So the Bhagavad Gita is, I won't get all into talking about what the purpose of the intention of the Bhagavad Gita is. I'll just briefly explain that it is Krishna God talking to Arjuna before he's about to go to battle into a war that he does not want to fight. It is God explaining to his most precious warrior why he has to fight and why it is his job to fight, why it's his job to do this work. The Bhagavad Gita is all about really selfless service. How taking yourself, the ego self, out of the work that you are doing and doing the things that you have been put onto this earth for. Now, of course, like all religious texts, all scripture, all ancient words, the Bhagavad Gita got misinterpreted, misconstrued, twisted, and ripped apart, just like the Bible did, just like the Quran, just like the Torah. All of these things happen across all religions, across belief systems. But it is our responsibility to take the ego out of it, take the man, the humanity out of what all of those scriptures, all of those texts, all of those things have been warped to present. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, when talking about duty and talking to this warrior about why he needs to commit violence, why that is his job, you don't get to decide here because this is your dharma. In the Bhagavad Gita, the verses are called slokas because it is a story. It's, I can't say it specifically because it's a story. It's the verses. They're not sutras because I think it's because they're not instructions. It's just like, this is the verse of this story. So in chapter 2, sloka 31, after Arjuna has done some back and forth about why he doesn't want to fight his cousins because the war is between him and his cousins. So he doesn't want to kill his family, even though his family are causing a great deal of destruction, right? So eventually Krishna's like, okay, I got to explain it to you this way. Furthermore, looking at your own duty, you will see no reason to waver. For certainly there is nothing higher for a Kshatriya than a righteous war. So that is his sect. He's a warrior. And then he goes on to explain the differences between the different types of people. So I'm just going to read it and then we'll get into it. So chapter 2, the yoga of wisdom, sloka 31 through 33 state, furthermore, looking at your own duty, you will see no reason to waver. For certainly there is nothing higher for a warrior than a righteous war. Happy indeed are the warriors, Arjuna, called to fight in such a battle that comes of itself like an open gate to heaven. But if you don't fight, when is your duty to do so? But if you don't fight, when it's your duty to do so, you lose your honor and incur sin. Meaning that if you don't do the work that is laid out for you, that is the issue. It's not about the war. It's not about the violence that he is about to visit upon these people who deserve the violence. It's not about that. If he does not do his work, that is the issue. Full stop. Chapter 2, Sloka 36 goes on, and your enemies will deride your strength and slander you. What could be more painful? If you are killed, you will gain heaven. If you are victorious, you will enjoy the earth. Therefore, rise up, Arjuna, resolve to fight. You gonna die if you do right. And if you win, you got it. So you're going to come to heaven anyway. So get over yourself. Basically is what he's saying. Get over yourself and do your work. Do your work. I'm going to read them all again because it was all over the place. Furthermore, looking at your own duty, you will see no reason to waver. For certainly there is nothing higher for a warrior than a righteous war. Happy indeed are the warriors, Arjuna, called to fight in such a battle that comes of itself, like an open gate to heaven. But if you don't fight when it's your duty to do so, you lose your honor and incur sin. And your enemies will deride your strengths and slander you. What could be more painful? If you are killed, you will gain heaven. If you are victorious, you will enjoy the earth. Therefore, rise up, Arjuna, and resolve to fight. So do your job. Do your job. If that means fighting and visiting violence upon those that are visiting violence upon you, or moving against your dharma, right? Moving against your work. You have every right to do the things that you need to do to defend your work. He goes on to explain how one might find the nature of their work. In chapter 18, Yoga of Freedom through Renunciation, Krishna tells Arjuna, indeed, Arjuna, the quality of one's own nature determine the appropriate role and duties for each person, whether scholar or priest, leader or warrior, tradesperson or laborer. And then he goes on to explain what each of those people do, but we'll stick with the warrior. The leader or warrior is naturally inclined to courage, vigor, firmness of mind, resourcefulness, generosity, leadership, and the resolve to flee, but to persevere in the midst of battle. And the resolve not to flee, but to persevere in the midst of battle. Now, Sloka 41 puts us all, is interpreted often to put everybody belongs in one of those groups exclusively. But I believe, like the 8 limbs of yoga, we are supposed to move through this practice cyclically. If that is true, then we probably occupy all of these roles at different points in our life. So we're all going to be a scholar. We're all going to be a warrior. We're all going to be a tradesperson. We're all going to be a laborer. And when we are in those roles, we are to do those jobs in the way that they are listed, with honesty, integrity, and all of that, right? So if that's true, then when we are greeted, when our work brings us into somebody who brings us into the presence of those who wish to do us harm, and our response is to do nothing, we are going absolutely against what our dharma is. So when we are taught in our yoga practice ahimsa as nonviolence without the context of our work and how that work is divinely given to us and how our avoidance of certain aspects of that work is a disservice to the higher power, whoever you believe the higher power is. Because Krishna is just God. Jehovah, all of them are the same entity, speaking to those who need to hear it in whatever language that they need to hear it. Because if you get rid of all of the ego and read all of and get into all of these texts, the golden rules, the basis of all of it is all the same. Do unto others, all of that. So in his explanation, Krishna's explanation to Arjuna about doing his job, doing the things that he has been sent here to do, he's trying to explain to him that it doesn't matter what he feels about any of the work that he's going to do. The work is yours to be done. It was given to you. And if you don't do it the way that you're supposed to, that's the sin. So you can attain perfection. Chapter 18, Yoga of Freedom Through Renunciation, Sloka 45. You can attain perfection by devoting yourself to the work that comes most naturally. I will explain how. And then he says some stuff and he goes on in Sloka 47. It is better to do your own dharma imperfectly. Start again. Sloka 18, Sloka 47 in chapter 18 says it's better to do your own dharma imperfectly than to excel at another's dharma. If you accept the duties of your own nature, you are free without sin. So even if you're doing stuff like it's not, you miss a little bit, it's fine. You're doing the work. Because guess what? In Sloka 48, he says, if you perform the duties of your own nature imperfectly, that is no reason to abandon those duties and begin something else. For all your undertakings at the outset are enveloped by evil as smoke surrounds fire. Meaning, once you find your work, of course it's not going to be perfect. You just got there. Of course you're going to make mistakes and make messes and do things wrong. You just arrived. It takes practice to get into it. If you don't practice, how can you get better? So allow yourself to be imperfect in your trying of doing your work. And recognizing those imperfections and continuing is also nonviolence. Because we often keep ourselves from doing things, from learning new things because it's not perfect when we first try it. Well, of course it's not. And even if it's not perfect, that doesn't mean you shouldn't trust. You should not keep doing it. Especially if it is something that calls from your soul. It is your soul's work. If it is something that you get lost in, baby, that's the thing you're supposed to be doing. So even if it's messed up and crooked, keep doing it, because eventually you'll straighten out those edges. You'll figure it out because you keep trying. And if you don't keep trying, you're doing yourself and everybody who is waiting for you to do this work, to shine your light, you're doing them a disservice too, because they're waiting for you to teach them. Because none of this is new. None of this is new. All of this is We are all simply vessels of this information, trying to get it back, get all of us back, get all of this information into the collective again, because we're too far away from it. Now start wrapping up here. So that's my talk on Ahimsa, nonviolence, and recognizing, leading with love and compassion, and being compassionate with ourselves first. And that compassion begins with, well, that's all I got for now. Doing your work. If you liked it, great. If not, matter how that's cool too. It starts to Until become. Next time, be well. It starts out as. Because how else are you going to get better at it? We all had to start somewhere. So maybe this isn't actually about Ahimsa. No, it is. Because we're often mean to ourselves. So maybe not just Ahimsa. Maybe it's a little bit of that Pratipakshavahan as well. See, this all of this works together. That replacement thinking, that is a way that we can work on that nonviolence and leading with love for ourselves. So